My name is Dr. Audrey Larkwell, and I want to begin with a fear many women after 40 carry quietly. Not because they want to be dramatic, not because they are imagining things, but because something about the mind begins to feel different. You forget a name in the middle of a conversation. You walk into a room and lose the reason you went there. You open your phone and cannot remember what you were about to check. You read the same sentence twice because your focus keeps drifting. You wake up after another restless night and feel like your brain never fully cleared. And somewhere beneath all of it, a question appears. Is my memory starting to fade? At first, you may try to explain it away. Maybe I am just busy. Maybe I have too much on my mind. Maybe this is just what happens after 40. But then the moments repeat. The word takes longer to come. The thought slips away faster. The morning fog stays longer. The mind that used to feel sharp now feels like it has to push through something before it can begin. And what hurts most is not only the forgetting, it is the feeling of distance from yourself. Because memory is not just information, memory is confidence. It is conversation. It is the feeling that you can trust your own mind. So when that trust begins to feel less steady, even in small moments, it creates a quiet fear that is hard to explain to anyone else. I know this not only from the women I work with, I know it from my own experience. In my mid-40s, there were mornings I sat down to write and the sharpness that had always arrived quickly simply took longer. The words were there, but the access felt different, and I recognized it for what it was. Not a failing, but a transition that deserved understanding, not fear. Today, I want to give you that understanding, not to scare you, not to diagnose you, but to help you see something many women were never taught clearly. Brain fog after 40 is not always just distraction, and it is not always just aging. For many women, it may be connected to a larger transition happening beneath the surface, one involving estrogen, sleep, stress, mood, nutrition, and the way the brain recovers. Research recognizes that cognitive complaints can become more common around menopause, a phase marked by hormonal change, especially declining estrogen. These complaints can involve memory, attention, verbal recall, and other factors that are connected to sleep, mood, and overall health, many of which may be addressed through changes in daily habits and routine. That means the brain fog is not something to laugh off. But it is also not something to panic about. It is something to understand. Because once you understand that symptoms may have reasons, they stop feeling like a sentence. They become signals. And signals can guide you. For years, estrogen was mostly discussed in connection with periods, fertility, hot flashes, and menopause. But estrogen also interacts with the brain in ways that go beyond what most women are told. It is involved in systems connected to mood, sleep, energy, temperature regulation, and cognitive function. So when estrogen begins to fluctuate and decline during perimenopause and menopause, many women notice changes that feel mental, not just physical. Poor focus, mental fatigue, mood swings, restless sleep, word recall problems, a mind that feels slower, a memory that does not feel as automatic as before. And this is where many women begin blaming themselves. They say, I am losing my edge. They say, I am not as sharp anymore. They say, I must be getting old. But what if the brain is not betraying you? What if the brain is responding? Responding to less sleep, responding to hormonal shifts, responding to stress, responding to blood sugar swings, responding to inflammation, responding to years of carrying responsibility without enough recovery. That shift in perspective matters. Because fear says something is wrong with me. Understanding says something may be asking for support. And support can begin in simple places. One of those places is food, not because food is magic, not because one food cures brain fog, not because eating something once changes the brain overnight, but because the brain is living tissue. It depends on blood flow, it depends on nutrients, it depends on stable energy, it depends on sleep. It depends on the body's ability to manage the oxidative stress and inflammation that tend to accumulate with age. And after 40, daily food choices may become more important because the brain may need more consistent nutritional support than before. That is where one daily food becomes especially interesting. Soy, not processed products loaded with soy additives, not sugary soy desserts. Traditional soy foods like tofu, edamame, tempeh, and unsweetened soy milk. Soy foods contain plant compounds called isoflavones. Isoflavones are sometimes called phytoestrogens because they can interact with estrogen receptors in the body, but they are not the same as the estrogen your body produces. They are much weaker, and their effects are complex. That is why we need to speak carefully. Soy is not hormone therapy. Soy does not replace estrogen. Soy does not cure memory loss. And soy may not be appropriate for every person in every situation without considering individual medical history. But soy sits at an interesting intersection of menopause, nutrition, and brain health. Some research has explored soy isoflavones in postmenopausal women and cognitive function. Results across studies have been mixed. Not every trial has shown clear benefit, and researchers continue to examine what factors may influence outcomes. But some analyses have reported possible associations with areas such as overall cognitive function and visual memory in postmenopausal women. That is the honest picture, not a miracle, not a guarantee. A possible nutritional signal worth considering as part of a larger daily pattern. And sometimes that is exactly where a better routine begins. For any woman dealing with brain fog after 40, memory changes, or difficulty concentrating, the guide in the first link of the description was created to help you understand practical daily steps that may support clearer thinking and better brain health. The guide is waiting for you. Click the first link in the description and see. Because the real question is not, can one food fix my memory? The better question is, what daily signals am I giving my brain? Soy may be one signal, a protein-rich, plant-based food, a source of isoflavones, a food that can replace less supportive choices, a simple addition to a brain-supportive eating pattern. But it works best as part of a bigger picture. Because the brain after 40 does not need one miracle. It needs a pattern, better sleep, more movement, more protein, more fiber, more whole foods, more hydration, more blood sugar stability, more stress recovery, and sometimes a daily natural supplement that supports the nutritional foundation the brain needs during a time when hormonal and metabolic changes have genuinely shifted what the body requires. I want to talk about that for a moment, not as a replacement for food, not as a shortcut around the habits that matter, but as something some women find genuinely helpful. A consistent daily layer of plant-based nutritional support, easy to add to the morning routine, that addresses several of the dimensions the brain depends on after 40. The brain during menopause is managing more than it appears. Hormonal fluctuations that affect the systems connected to mood and focus. Sleep that is more fragmented than before, reducing the overnight restoration the brain depends on. Oxidative stress that accumulates in neural tissue over decades. Blood sugar patterns that have become less stable as insulin sensitivity has shifted. Inflammation that quietly affects the internal environment the brain lives in. A well-chosen natural daily formula may support several of these dimensions simultaneously. Antioxidant protection for neural tissue, support for stable energy and blood sugar, adaptogenic support for stress resilience, and the botanical compounds that research has connected to cognitive wellness in the midlife context. Not a cure, not a diagnosis, not a hormone, just a daily practice that works alongside food, sleep, movement, and medical guidance, quietly supporting the foundation the brain is trying to maintain. Some women describe it as the first time something in their routine felt like it was working with their body rather than asking their body to push through despite everything. That is the goal, not dramatic results, quiet, consistent support. So when I talk about soy as a starting point and daily natural nutritional support as a complement, I am not promising an outcome. I am describing a direction toward taking the brain seriously, a direction toward giving it what it needs instead of only asking more of it, a direction toward understanding the transition rather than suffering through it. That direction begins with seeing the fog differently, not as proof of decline, as a signal. The signal may be saying I need better sleep. The signal may be saying the meals I am eating are not giving me stable energy. The signal may be saying stress has been high and recovery has been low. The signal may be saying the hormonal transition I am in is real and it needs real support. And that signal can be responded to with food, with movement, with sleep, with natural daily support. and with the medical evaluation that any persistent, worsening, or disruptive cognitive change deserves. I want to be direct about that last part. Memory changes should not be dismissed if they are significant, worsening, or interfering with daily life. If you are getting lost in familiar places, repeating questions without realizing it, struggling with tasks you have always managed easily, or if people close to you are noticing major changes, speak with a healthcare professional. If any cognitive symptom comes on suddenly or accompanies weakness, speech trouble, vision changes, or severe headache, seek urgent medical care. Nutritional support is not a substitute for proper evaluation. It is a daily foundation that may help the brain function better within the space of what it is going through. The evaluation is what tells you what it is going through. Both matter. And I also want to say something directly about soy, because soy is a food that comes with nuance. Women with a history of hormone-sensitive cancers, thyroid concerns, soy allergy, or those on certain medications should discuss regular soy or isoflavone use with a healthcare provider before adding it to a daily routine. Soy is simple, but bodies are personal, and the best approach is always the one that fits your specific history and health picture. Not a general recommendation taken without context. For women who can include it safely, traditional soy foods offer a realistic starting point. Tofu added to a vegetable stir-fry, edamame with lunch instead of a sugary snack, tempeh as part of a balanced dinner, unsweetened soy milk in the morning. Simple, repeatable, not extreme. And that simplicity matters, because many women try to address brain fog and memory concerns through anxiety and pressure. They search symptoms at night, they worry in silence, they drink more coffee, they push harder, they sleep less, they try to prove they are still sharp by demanding more of themselves. But the brain does not usually become clearer through pressure. It becomes clearer through support, the kind of support that says, you are allowed to slow down and take care of this. You are allowed to take your cognition seriously. You are allowed to want your clarity back. And you are allowed to build a daily routine that makes that possible. Here is what that routine can look like. Sleep protected as a non-negotiable, not an afterthought, not something that happens after everything else is done. Sleep treated as one of the most important cognitive interventions available, because overnight is when the brain consolidates memory, clears metabolic waste, and restores the systems that make the next day feel clearer. Movement chosen consistently. Even a daily 30-minute walk improves blood flow to the brain, supports blood sugar stability, reduces cortisol, and directly influences cognitive function in the hours that follow. Meals built to stabilize energy. Protein and fiber at each meal slow glucose absorption, reduce the energy crashes that make focus fragile, and give the brain the steady fuel it depends on. Soy foods included when appropriate as a regular part of this eating pattern. And daily natural nutritional support added as a consistent layer, addressing oxidative stress, blood sugar stability, stress resilience, and the specific nutritional gaps that the menopausal transition creates. When these pieces work together, the brain starts to receive something it may not have had in a long time. Consistent, daily care that matches what it is actually going through. And the fog begins to thin, not all at once, not perfectly, but in the quiet, meaningful way that consistent support always works. A morning that feels slightly clearer, a word that comes back more quickly, a focus that holds a little longer. A day that does not feel like pushing through clouds from the first hour. That is what is possible. Not a miracle, a foundation. And a foundation built carefully and maintained consistently is more powerful than any quick fix. If you have been watching this and recognizing yourself, the foggy mornings, the slower recall, the fatigue that sleep does not fully fix, the quiet worry about what it all means, then please take one step before you leave. The guide is in the first link of the description below. It explains the complete daily support approach, the food pattern, the natural daily supplement that fits into a real routine, and the path toward the medical evaluation your symptoms may deserve. And if the description link is hard to find, the same guide is in the pinned comment below. The guide is waiting for you. Click the first link in the description and see. Because your brain fog may be a signal, not a sentence. Your memory changes may be a reason to pay attention, not a reason to give up. Your mind may not be disappearing. It may be asking for conditions that help it work more clearly again. And that is a very different story than the one fear tells. Fear says you are losing yourself. Understanding says you are moving through a transition. And transitions, when met with the right support, do not have to define the years ahead. They can become the beginning of a different kind of care. One that takes the brain seriously, one that takes sleep seriously, one that takes nutrition seriously, one that takes the hormonal transition seriously without letting it feel like a sentence. This is Dr. Audrey Larkwell. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. If this message helped you think about your brain fog and memory changes differently, please subscribe to the channel. Every week, we explore the hormonal shifts, the nutritional strategies, and the evidence-informed daily habits that help women after 40 protect their clarity, confidence, and cognitive health through midlife and beyond. Estrogen loss may change the conversation, but it does not end the story, and your clearest chapters may still be ahead.